Okay, so let's create one class called department and add that department to employee. So class department. I think we already have department class. Okay, so department I have, say I department. If I see the department, that class I have already created. So let's, for now, let's remove the implementation of serializable. Remove this one as well. Just have the name. Okay, cloning and all those things. Let's remove and let's write one to string method. Okay, here I would say return this dot name. Okay, so here I have department class which has one property that is called name and its getter setter. Okay, and one constructor that is taking the argument as department name. Okay, so let's see it. So in test serialization class, in the employee serial, I have added department object. Let's add the into the constructor. So department dpt and say this dot department is equal to dpt. Okay. Now in this toString method, let's say department this dot department dot get name. Okay, so my twisting method is also ready. Okay, let's try to serialize it. So in the main method I am creating the employee, and after this last name I am passing new department and giving the department name as sales. Okay, let's print it, then serialize it. Okay, then deserialize it. Okay, so here I am serializing, and after that I am deserializing and getting that object from byte stream to employee deserialized object and printing that deserialized object. Let's run it. See here, this print is for the first statement, that is there I'm printing the employee. Okay, which has id, name, last name, salary, company, and department. Okay, now we are not able to serialize the, let's see where the problem is coming. Problem is coming in writing the object. When I am doing the serialization, at the time I am writing the object to the byte stream. At that time it is giving the problem. Problem is coming because employee has one attribute that is of type department, and the department is not serialized. So member attribute should be serialized. The class of member attribute or type of member attribute should be serialized. So in earlier example, a string was serialized, so everything was going fine. Here, department is not serialized. That's whole problem here. So let's make it department as serializable. Let's go to department and make this class as serializable. Implements serializable. And let's create one serializable ID. Okay, so that is serial version UID. Now let's run this program again, test serialization. So see here, the department is now serialized and the deserialized has the value of department name, that is sales. So the bottom line to say here is that in the class which you are to serialize, all the member all the member attributes, the type of their the the type of that attribute, the class of that attribute should be serialized either, or it should be primitive type. Okay, so that's all about the cases what I have discussed. Okay, let's talk about serialization in inheritance. Serialization with inheritance. What does it mean? Suppose you have suppose you have one class, okay, which is serialized, and you have its child class which is not serialized. Okay, so if I have a class which parent class is serialized, then child class will also be serialized. Okay, so let's create this employee serial is the let's treat this employee serial class as a parent class. Let's create one child class employee serial child. Okay, and let's extend this class employee serial. Okay, now this class is giving some compilation problem. Why? Because it is looking for implicit constructor. There is no implicit constructor, so it is required one implicit constructor. So let's add here one implicit constructor in employee serial. Okay, so I added one employee serial default constructor in the parent class. So now your compilation problem is gone because it is extending one class which is already serialized. So it is suggesting you to write one serialization ID. Okay, so let's add one serialization ID here, and let's add one constructor. So this constructor takes all the parameters of parent. So something like this, and it takes one extra parameter, say z. Let's create one private int z. Okay, so what it does, it calls super the parameter 1 and passing all those id, name, salary, last name, department. Okay, and let's add z from the parameter. Okay, now this is my child class. Okay, and child class is extending one parent class with that is employee serial, and that employee serial is serializable. Okay, it is implementing serializable. So in the main method, let's create child object. Okay, where I need to pass the value of z as is 10. Okay, Now let's write that object. Okay, let's serialize that object. After that serialization, let's get it back, that object, where typecast also should be changed to child. Okay, now let's print it. So if you see the output, let's print the output of z also. So in the child class, let's override to string method. What it says, return super dot to string plus z. Fine. So I'm reusing this to string method of in parent class, because that's place where I have given that it is printing that name, id, last name, and all those things. Okay, so here I'm adding just z value of z. So if you run it again, you will see the value of z is serialized here, and deserialized objects is having that value. Okay, so this is what does it means. It means that if you have one parent class that is serialized, means it is implementing serializable, then child class will also be serialized. Okay, let's go other way. If I have my parent class non-serializable and child class as a serializable, then the parent class will not be serialized, only child class will be serialized. Okay, so if parent is serialized, child class will be serialized. If parent is not serialized, then and only child class is serialized, then parent class will not be serialized. Okay, so let's do that. So here it is extending employee serial. Let's implement serializable. Okay, and this class, let's remove implementation of the serializable. Let's make employee serial class as a non-serializable class. Okay, now let's run it. So here it is giving some null pointer exception. Where it is giving in null pointer exception? It is giving null pointer exception in this dot department dot get name. This problem is coming when you are trying to do the deserialization. Okay, so after doing the deserialization, I'm trying to print the value of the deserialized object. At the time, I'm getting null pointer exception. So null pointer exception is coming because of this toString method. Okay, so here let's print it again. So here first one is, that is before serialization. After serialization, if you see the parent class property as an id name 0, sorry, id, that is integer, primitive type, so value is 0, default value. Name null, last name null, salary 0, company, because that is static, so it will come as xyz. Department is null, and z is that belongs to the child object, so only z is serialized, and all the properties of parent class are not serialized. Okay, so what does it mean? In the main method, I have created the object of child class and passing all those values which are applicable to parent class, that is like id, name, and salary, last name, department. Only 10 is the value that belongs to child object. So here I am trying to serialize the child object. That is the object which is only serialized. Parent class is not serialized. So in this case, the parent class will not be serialized. So all the attributes of the parent class will not be serialized. So once you try to get back the object parent parent class attributes will be default value or null value. If it is primitive type, it will come as a default value, otherwise null value. So here ID and salary, those are int. So default value of int is 10. Okay, so let's conclude it. What is the conclusion here? If parent class is serializable, then child class will be serializable. Okay, other way, if parent class is not serializable, and child class is serializable, then parent class attributes will not be serialized. Okay, so this is the conclusion. So that's all about serialization. So let's try to recap. So serialization, what I have covered here, we tried to create the object and did the serialization, and we did the deserialization. Then we talk about what is the importance of serialization ID. Then we talk about member class. Okay, so member class, any attribute which is a member attribute, that class should be serialized. Then we talk about serialization with inheritance. Okay, so that's all about serialization. And there is concept called externalization also. Okay, that I will explain.